Hey everybody, welcome to week 4 of stay-at-home learning. And I thought it would be fun to do a hands-on investigation this week. It doesn't take many supplies, and if you can't get them, don't worry. You can just watch the video and make your observations from mine, but I really think it would be worthwhile for you to try to get those materials together and do it yourself, because hey, it's going to at least pass some time. You'll be able to see it right in front of you and make your own observations. So this whole unit is about reproduction and energy. And as you've done your reading, I know you all have, the reproduction takes a lot of energy for many organisms. Some of them are having to travel really far distances. Some of them are having to fight other organisms to be able to reproduce. And organisms really need to reproduce because they're going to pass down those genes onto the next generation, right? They need to survive and reproduce. That's what all organisms are trying to do. And they're going to pass on those genes through reproduction. And so energy is required to reproduce. At the beginning of the year, we talked a little bit about nutrition and how our cells need energy to carry out all of their processes, and we need energy to move all of the parts of our body and get all of our things done. And so reproduction is just one of those things. This unit has been talking about energy storage molecules, and that's any molecule that an organism can use to release energy. So there's a lot of different types of those molecules. So you might be familiar, remember glucose is one of those. It's a special type of sugar. And glucose is used to release energy during cellular respiration. So when our cells create energy to carry out work, like walking, talking, any kind of thing. So different types of energy storage molecules are broken down by the body, and they're used to release energy. Each storage energy molecule, like the ones from starches and fats, those are too big to get through a cell wall. So when the body needs these larger molecules, they're broken down first into glucose, which can pass through a cell wall. And once they're inside the cell, the energy storage molecule can be used along with oxygen to release energy. So energy from energy storage molecules is used for all kinds of purposes, not just for reproduction. Even when an organism is completely still or asleep, it still needs to release energy from its energy storage molecules. This is because all movement requires some kind of energy. So these processes that are happening all the time, like your heartbeat or your breathing, you're still using energy, and your body is releasing that energy from its energy storage molecules. So we're going to set up an experiment, and we're going to use sugar, an energy storage molecule, to learn about how energy storage molecules allow organisms to release energy to reproduce. We will study the effect of sugar on yeast. We're using yeast because it's a living organism that reproduces quickly, and it's easy for us to keep. The yeast that we're going to be using is just the same that you use to bake, right? It's a really small organism, and it's really good for studying changes over the course of generations because we can just see it rapidly multiplying. It's a pretty cool little organism. So we're going to be testing to see the effect of giving yeast a lot of sugar, a little sugar, and no sugar. And remember, sugar is that energy storage molecule. And the goal is to find out if these differences in the amount of energy storage molecules provided have an effect on how much energy the yeast can release, which would affect how much it reproduces. If the yeast isn't using very much energy, it's not going to be able to reproduce as much. As if it has a lot of energy, access to energy, then it could reproduce more, right? So we're going to put yeast in an environment that has a lot of energy, a little bit of energy, and no energy, and see which one is able to use up energy. So we're going to get things set up here, and I have mine all set up, and you can pause at any time to get your setup to do it along with me, or like I said, if you can't get all of the materials, keep watching, and then you can make your observations at the end. Okay, I'm going to get this set up right here. Hopefully you can see that. Okay, so you're going to need 3 glasses or cups that are roughly the same size. It doesn't matter how big they are. Kind of small ones are better, but I didn't have 3 smaller ones. So I'm using 3 bigger glasses, and you want to label those A, B, and C so you can tell the difference between the 3 because we're going to put different things in each one. So you can use a piece of paper, sticky note, whatever, and A, B, and C. You're going to need some sugar, some warm water. This is water that boiled probably 10-15 minutes ago. So it's not super hot anymore, but it is warm. And then I'm going to be using a 1/4 cup of water for each one, but you could use a 1/2 cup, but a consistent amount of water for each one. And then I'm going to be using yeast and sugar. And I got a spoon to stir some stuff with. Okay? And then these measurements are, I was going to do 1/2 tablespoon of sugar in this big one, but this is also a tablespoon for the yeast. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, so just to recap, you've got your 3 glasses labeled, something to stir with, warm water, sugar, yeast, and then some kind of measuring instrument. Like I said, you're just going to use what's available to you. So the first thing we're going to do is put our sugar in the glasses. So this one, we're not going to do any sugar in. A, no sugar. In B, we're going to do a pinch of sugar. Now, a pinch is just whatever you can fit between your index finger and your thumb. So I've got a pinch of sugar. Okay? Then in C, we're going to put, we'll do 1/2 tablespoon of sugar. So you can see we have big difference in the amounts of sugar in each of these. Okay, done with that, move it out of the way. Okay, next we're going to put some yeast in there. Now some folks might have yeast that comes in like a jar or a tub. Mine is in these packets. And the important thing is to put the same amount of yeast in each container, because we're not, the one thing that we're changing is the amount of sugar. The yeast and the water is going to be the same for each container. So one of these packets is just about less than a tablespoon. So I'm going to put one of those in A. Now, like I said, the important thing is that the amount of yeast is the same in all 3 containers. So if you're using more yeast or less yeast than me, that's okay, but you just want to make sure that between the 3 containers, it's the same. And now we're going to put in some warm water. So I'm going to do a 1/4 cup of warm water for each one. Now, when you're doing this, I want you to take note of where the water level is right when you start. So maybe a good idea is either to mark it with a washable pen or a sticky note or some way that you know how much is in there. So I have these flag sticky notes, and I'm just going to put it to mark the top of the water there, just so I can be sure if I'm making any observations, I know if there's been a change. And because each of these glasses is a tiny bit different, it's really important to take a look there. And then use whatever you brought to stir with. Stir it up. let me get this, try to show you. This is what each one looks like for now. So I have that sticky note there marking the level. I can't tell if you can see that, but that's C. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to leave that for about 10 minutes, and then I'm going to check back. And so I will turn on the camera again, and we'll check it out. Okay. Okay, it's been 10 minutes since we added the warm water, and I wanted to give you a look at what's going on so that if you don't have the materials, you can make your observations from these. So this is A. You can see the level hasn't risen above the line. This is what it looks like inside. Again, this is A. Okay. This is B. And this is C. Again, this is just 10 minutes after adding the water. So I want you to make some observations about what has happened to each of those and how you think that relates to the yeast using energy. All right, this is the final update for the yeast investigation. It has been 15 minutes since we put in the warm water. So this is A, no sugar. B, just a pinch of sugar. Trying to get some good shots for you. And C, half a tablespoon of sugar.